What's going on YouTube, and welcome back to another episode here at Wildman Lives. I'm your host, Wildman. Now on today's episode, and I guess for the introduction for the series that I'm doing coming up, I'm going to take you through a very common strength training method that typical strongmen do on typical strongman weeks. So if you're curious about how to train for strongman and what's like the kind of the template that strongmen typically use, I'm going to provide that in the next 4 videos of exactly how strongmen train and why they do the movements that they do. So for today's starter, we're going to be doing the back squat, and you can see, no, this barbell is not bending very heavily from these 45-pound plates at the end of it. This bar was actually made like that. It's a curved bar, and this type of curved bar comes from Titan Fitness. It's called the Yoke curved bar. So it's a specialty barbell, and the reason why it was designed initially was because due to its curved nature, it makes it a lot easier on the shoulders, because the back squat tends to get some shoulder impingements when you're trying to back squat like this because it's so straight on the barbell. But with this, you're able to get your hands in a more comfortable position, so it's a little bit shoulder friendly. So that's kind of the reason why I'm doing this today specifically, is because I did a lot of heavy shoulders on the last video. So I kind of want to take it easy, and that kind of gave me the inspiration, the aha moment, that maybe I should do an entire series around a typical strongman training week. So I'm going to walk you through that. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this in strength giant set, which I'm also going to explain why I'm doing all these other movements as well. So let's pop into today's workout. Let's get started. Now for today's strength giant set, I'm going to be doing that Yukon back squat, like I said. And not only have I found that it's easier on the shoulders because of that curve shape, but it actually makes my core have to work a lot harder to stabilize the movement, which means I have to focus on the control of my technique, which I really liked. And I'll explain that, and you'll see it shake a whole lot more as I go up in weight. And as I go up in weight, I'm going to be doing some mountain climbers, because this is a great exercise to do not only for the core and for the legs, but it also gets my ankle mobility good for the back squats as I go up in weight. And weighted pull-ups, which is going to be the same weight throughout the entire movement, because pull-ups are really good, not only to get my back primed for the back squat, for that bar to sit on the meat, but it's also going to stretch out my back. That's going to be the strength giant set for the day. Now, back in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, strongman was a very spectacle sport, and I guess it still is. The only time that you would see the back squat was when it had this really weird machine that they used to have people sit on the very top, and it was like a Smith machine. And basically, the bars were empty on the bottom, but the weight was all at the top with like beautiful women in bikinis holding signs. And it was quite a spectacle, let me tell you. But in the 2000s, all the way up until the present, the only time that you're going to see the back squat in strongman is really 2 different kind of implements. And the first one is going to be like a fixed axle bar with these comically big globes at the very end of it that's mounted to it, so it doesn't rotate like on a barbell. And they have to back squat down to some crash pads that are on either side of the athlete. This is typically done in World's Strongest Man, and it's usually done for reps, never really for a 1 rep max. Now, for this reason, both in the late 1900s all the way up until 2000 to the present, this is why strongmen typically didn't focus on 1 rep maxes when it came to the back squat. It was mainly used to get strong in all the other lifts, particularly the deadlift, and that's where they focus on, because in strongman, the deadlift is very important, and you can actually make a lot of money just off doing that lift very well alone. But in the last 6 years, Rogue, these guys, introduced a bar that is now being used in strongman competitions, both at the Arnold Strongman Classic and at the Rogue Invitational, where the bar looks just like this, a curved bar, very similar to the one that I'm back squatting on. And Rogue is very intrigued just how much weight these strongmen can lift. So they actually test 1 rep maxes on this kind of implement. That's why it's uber important, if you are training to be a strongman, that you're training on implements that you're going to see in competition. So back squatting with an axle bar and then back squatting with this cambered bar is very important, because that's what you're going to see in competition, and you need to practice with those things if you want to get good. And don't worry, it'll automatically translate over into the barbell. You might actually get better at the barbell and find the barbell a whole lot easier, because the barbell is meant to be lifted. The only thing you'd have to focus on is your shoulder mobility, because axles and this cambered bar are a lot more shoulder friendly when it comes to shoulder mobility than barbells. And there's other movements you can do with this cambered bar, which I'll show you in just a second. Now, for you eagle-eye observers out there, you probably noticed the gym math is off, because it's always 5 pounds extra than a normal barbell. And you are correct. This curved Yukon barbell is actually 5 pounds heavier. It's 50 pounds instead of 45 pounds for a standard barbell. So you Detective Pikachus, I knew nothing would get by you. I knew that you'd be able to notice that and you'd be able to spot that right away. And this was the set that was supposed to be my top set, but it went too easy. And I hate it when things go too easy because that means I have to go up and wait. But then the question is just how much further up and wait do I need to go in order for this to be an effective workout? So I decided, you know what? I'm going to make it an even 400 pounds, so 50 pounds more. And I'm going to try to get to 3 reps. But I would be really happy if I could just hit this for 2. And I believe this is the most amount of weight I've ever done with just 400 pounds on the bar, even just for 1 rep. So this is automatically a PR, no matter how many reps I hit with this. And you'll find I don't quite go all the way down. And that's because I was very nervous because it was wobbling like crazy. But I felt comfortable enough to go for a second rep. And it went a whole lot slower. And I could have gone for a third rep, but I thought, what's the point? I could feel that I was an inch just above parallel. So I thought it wasn't worth it. All right, so not too shabby. 40 pounds more than what my anticipated top set was going to be. I will take that any day. And it didn't tax me very much, which is always a good thing. So I'm not trying to push it on today's implement. I was just trying to get to learn it. And it was also trying to get to learn me. And we were having a relationship back and forth. We're having a dialogue, trying to figure each other out so that we don't kill each other. So now I'm going to move on with the strongman training cycle. So now I'm going to basically take all these weights off. And now I'm going to use this bar because it's curved. And I'm going to use it to walk across the bullpen like a yoke fashion. So if you've never seen that with strongman, they typically have these implements on their back that are like weights on the ground or whatever. And they have to carry that for max distance or for a certain amount of distance with a whole lot of weight. Since I don't have that implement out here, that's why this bar is super handy because I can actually use it as a yoke since the positioning of the hands is very similar to how it would be on a yoke frame. So let's pop in right now and I'll show you how that works. Now for the variation giant set, I was now switching over to the Yukon yoke walk, which is a similar movement to a yoke walk, but I think it's a lot harder because I have that bar curved the way that it's supposed to be. My hands are where they would be on a yoke implement, but because those straps are swinging like crazy, it really taxes my core. So as a result, when I do step into a yoke contraption, it's actually a lot easier for me because I train like this. So having the Yukon bar is super handy. And because my legs are super tired from the back squats, I can't go up as heavy as I typically could when I do this on a different day, such as a bench press day, which you've seen me typically do. But 500 pounds seemed perfect today because my legs were just so darn tired. And this is how strongmen train. So if you want to get good and be a good strongman, you got to train like this, where on your back squat days, your secondary motion is going to be some type of yoke walk. And I just continued on in that same format as a strength giant set by heroically throwing off my belt as such. And I continue to do the mountain climbers just to kind of keep an even number. And also those weighted pull-ups. Again, just trying to keep those even numbers. But again, they're very good for you. So even if you're not a strongman, this is a great exercise to do all together. And typically strongman on their back squat day trains with some type of specialty bar like this, and then they switch over and then do some yoke walks to finish it off. So that's how they typically train. You could end it there. However, if you are a little bit more advanced, then there's some more exercises you could do that will help improve your back squat and your yoke. And we're going to jump into that right now. Now for the assistant giant set, I was doing 3 rounds, and just to be consistent with a strongman kind of workout, I'm doing some farmer walking lunges. Those are just 25-pound kettlebells. That wasn't the point because my legs were already smoked from all the back squats and the yoke carries I was doing. So now I'm just trying to finish off my quads, but I'm trying to do it in a strongman style because strongmen do farmer walks and they really need to hit their quads at the end of the workout. Then I would immediately jump into some weighted ab mat sit-ups. This is one of my favorite exercises to do because it really builds the brace up, which you need for every compound movement. This is also something that really activates my hips and kind of gets some blood pumped back into my hips, which is always hurting after I'm done with all the heavy movements. And it absolutely destroys your abs. You can't forget about that. The idea is just to hold that kettlebell as close to your chest as much as possible and try not to cheat the movement. That's the whole kind of base behind doing a weighted ab mat sit-up in the first place. Then I immediately jump over and do some box jumps. Because after you're done squatting and doing heavy yokes and your legs want to give out, it does not want to move explosively. So to teach your body to move explosively when it really doesn't want to is to do some kind of box jump. And I've actually found that this is quite difficult to do. I've actually had some clients do this when I've trained them, and I found that they can't do it. So I'm actually pretty proud of myself that I'm able to do some box jumps and move explosively after I've absolutely beat up my legs. Now for the accessory giant set, I was doing 3 rounds. And just because I've never done this before, I decided since the Yukon bar was out here, I'm going to do some curls with it. And I must say, I was very pleased because of all the weighted pull-ups that I was doing, my biceps were already kind of toast. So now just to kind of finish them off with that little wiggle at the top because it's curved, it made it a lot harder to curl, which I really liked and really stimulated the biceps. Then I immediately moved on to hitchhikers. If you want to be a strongman, you got to keep your shoulders healthy. Face pulls and some kind of variation of it, such as hitchhikers, really help. And then flutter kicks, of course, because it really works the abs, but it also makes my inner thighs feel a lot better, which is something that's hard to target all around after some heavy squats. And that was really the entire workout for the day. Alrighty, so that concludes it for today's episode. I hope everybody learned something new and that you enjoyed training like a strongman for day 1. Join me tomorrow when I do the second day of training like a strongman, episode 2. And I really appreciate everybody stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.